Okay, hi everyone. Happy to be here today. Thank you for joining us. This is the last talk for today. I hope you're all feeling well. We've had a long day. Today, Dr. Nestori and I will be co-presenting Defending Against the Evolving OAuth Attack Landscape. We're excited to dive into how the OAuth attack-based threats are growing, and most importantly, how can we defend against them. In this session, we'll blend our perspectives to explore real attack techniques and practical defenses. By the end, you'll understand the latest OAuth attack trends like consent phishing and token theft, and we'll see how attackers can exploit the trust in OAuth, and we'll learn actionable strategies to protect your organizations. So before we start, let me introduce myself properly. I'm Daniel Goltz. I have been an engineering group manager in Microsoft up until 2 days ago in Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. That's the product building the actual defense capabilities against what we're going to show today. As of yesterday, I joined the Microsoft Red team. So maybe next year I'll be in the other room presenting. I'm building a new group as part of the Microsoft Red team based out of Israel called the AI Adversary Lab. I'm very excited for that new chapter. In this session today, I'll be highlighting the big picture trends and defensive strategies. And now I'll hand over to my colleague Nestori to present himself.
Thanks, Daniel. So my name is Dr. Nestori, and as probably some of you know, in socials, I'm Dr. Azuredi, and I'm working for Mystic, or Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center. And my job role has like 2 different parts. One is pretty much what you are going to do internally, but I'm trying to find vulnerabilities before bad guys do and help to fix them. So I'm actually on the basement doing coding and hacking. And the other part is that I'm standing on the stage, so I'm educating people about how our products really work. And yeah, so actually it was interesting. We both submitted talk here, and we didn't get accepted unless we do it together. And Daniel and me, we are like first time here speaking together, so he was like a little bit worried that how does it go, but I said, that's fine. So I have a lot of talks, like 2 already in this month, 2 more in Europe this month, and then 2 more in next month in Canada. So I'm on kind of a tour. But anyways.
Yeah, okay, let's start it. We're both Microsoft employees, so everything should be perfectly fine for today's presentation. Oh, sorry. So I guess some more technical issues. Okay, we can start. So our agenda for today is packed with both threat insights, right, Nestori?
Yep.
And we'll start by setting the stage for the OAuth threat landscape overview. And then we'll go to the token-based authentication 101. We'll see some attack scenarios and demos. And from there, we'll continue to detection and prevention. So before we dive into the broader overview of the OAuth attack landscape, I wanted to start by sharing a real-world attack campaign that we've seen played out repeatedly over the past few months across multiple large organizations. It's important to say that this is not theoretical. This is happening, and it's worth your attention for several reasons. First, this is a cloud-only attack. The entire attack chain unfolds in the cloud. There's no malware, no endpoint exploitation, no lateral movement inside of your corporate environment or network. It all starts with an OAuth consent phishing email. An attacker tricks the user into granting permission and to a malicious app, and that's basically it. From that moment, everything is done via NHI or a non-human identity. That's important because it means that the entire operation is happening outside of the managed corporate or device environment. There are no real-time detections, no endpoint telemetry. These NHIs, they operate via APIs, and it just looks like a normal app integration. In this specific case, the attacker accessed the user's mailbox and silently read through emails. In other cases, we've seen access to source code repositories, sensitive documents, or even production environments, all without raising a single red flag. Now, I'm not going to go into the full details of this attack just yet. We'll circle back to it. But I wanted to start here because I think it highlights exactly why understanding the OAuth attack surface is more important now than ever. Okay, let's start with the big picture then. Why are OAuth-based attacks surging? The short answer is that our IT ecosystem have changed. We're all using SaaS applications heavily. The average enterprise now uses about 150 SaaS apps. That's a huge jump from just a handful about a decade ago. Every one of those apps likely uses OAuth tokens or API keys to integrate with our core systems. This means that there are many more tokens and trust relationships for attackers to target. On top of that, users and, of course, organizations, they increasingly chain these apps together for efficiency. Think about all the add-ons and third-party applications that you authorize with a single click. These app-to-app integrations often request broad permissions. In fact, a single OAuth app can let a third party read and write emails, files, contacts, almost everything, anything, if you approve the right permission that it asks for. Microsoft internal research actually shows that 1 out of 3 OAuth apps are overprivileged. This means that they just have more access than they really need to. Sorry. Yeah. So this is a goldmine for attackers. With one careless click, a malicious app can gain significant foothold. And we'll circle back to the attacker I showed earlier, and we'll see how this comes into play. And by the way, it's not just casual hackers that are using it. Nation-state actors have, and organized cybercriminal organizations have also noticed this opportunity. Mystique, actually, and thank you in the story for that, have seen a big increase in OAuth app abuse by advanced actors in the past year. The reason for that is because operating through a trusted app can bypass many of the traditional defenses. For example, an OAuth app doesn't trigger an MFA prompt every time it uses a token. It just quietly works. Attacker loves that stealth, and we'll see concrete examples soon. And finally, you probably heard about this endlessly today, even in the previous talk. There's a wave of new AI-based SaaS tools and integrations. Users are excited to try them, myself included, and they often just click approve on whatever that tool asks for, whatever permission they ask for. This mix of rapid SaaS adoption and user convenience just creates the perfect storm. There's a lot of trust, but not a lot of verification. And on top of that, those tools are actually also being leveraged by attackers. They leverage those tools to make their own attacks more sophisticated and efficient. So in summary, sorry. In summary, sorry for that. In summary, OAuth is becoming a critical attack surface that we should definitely look into. And moving to Nestori for his part.
So that we understand these techniques better, I decided to start from the scratch. So how this technology works, basically. So we have 3 key concepts in OAuth. So we have a user or application here, and that role is consuming services. Then we have the party service provider who is providing services. So let's say Exchange Online. And finally, we have identity provider who is providing identity and access management services. And this could be, I don't know, Entry ID, for instance. So these are the roles here. And these roles can have permissions. So we can have delegated permissions, which means that how the application, like let's say Outlook, what the Outlook client can do on your behalf. So usually I would say read mail and send email, right? But it can like read your, let's say, OneDrive, for instance. Outlook doesn't do that, well, as an example. Or we can have app-only permissions, which means that application is doing something on the background. So there's no users involved whatsoever. So that could be something like, let's say, integration between two different systems. So one is contacting the other system and then updating data and so on. And as Daniel mentioned, we have witnessed that most of the applications, well, not most, but many applications are overprivileged. Like they can have like a global admin level permissions, even though they just need to read something. So that's why this can go wrong quite easily. And here's an example of what happens when you try to authenticate. So there are different flows. These might, seem to be like complicated. Well, they kind of are, but not. So let's see. So what happens if me, as a Nestori, want to use Outlook to read email from Exchange Online? So what happens? So I need to go to Entra, in this case, and tell that, okay, it's me, Nestori. I'm using Outlook client. I want to access that resource. And I need to prove my identity. Because I'm using Outlook, I don't need to prove identity of Outlook client, only myself. I can just tell that I'm using Outlook, because it's what we call first-party application. And if everything goes okay, Entra will give me an access token and send it back to me. An access token I can now use to access Exchange Online. So quite simple. So I need to prove my identity. I will get an access token that tells me what I can do with resource and which client. Now, if you are using that on behalf of something, so application is doing something on your behalf, so it's not you, but it's some application. So it's pretty much saying that I want to use this application. I go to Entra, I prove my identity. Now what I get back is not access token, but code. And that code tells who I am as a user, which service I can use, which client I can use, and so on. And then with that code, you go to service provider. And now service provider is using a thing called app or client. And it has a set of permissions. But anyways, now the application needs to prove its identity to Entra. And how that happens? Well, you can use credentials, so application credentials or certificate. And with that and the code, you send both to the backend, and what you get back is now access token. And depending on how you program the whole thing is that you may have the access token back to user or not, and then you can consume the service. So a little bit complicated, but this just shows that sometimes you need to prove user's identity, but also application's identity. Okay, then some OAuth attack vectors. So we have the consent phishing thing. Who has heard about that? Okay, well, Daniel will cover that later on. Token theft. Anyone? Okay, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then and also about this, and then, well, this also, and then you will give us like the emerging threats, what is coming on. Okay, so this is a token-based authentication attack graph. So basically, first thing, well, it's a kind of a flow. So we have a what's that called, port, I suppose, and we have like different parts to get at the end. And let's start here. So do we have access to secrets? So this is usually like nation-state actors who may or may not have, at some point, have some of our token signing secrets. And when they have that, they can forge tokens. And the other part is that if you don't have access to the secrets, then you need to steal tokens. And then you can use those. And yesterday there was news about a new thing from one of our researchers. So my friend Dirk and Mollema found a way to do some stuff, so I had to change the process. So if you are Dirk, then you can just forge tokens. But because I'm not an advanced persistent threat or a Dirkian, I need to steal tokens. So I'm going to show a couple of demos of those. And then we have these migrate attack like tactics. So some demos. So what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to show 3 demos. So one is doing like a phishing, and the second one is stealing tokens as a user from user's endpoint, and then stealing tokens if you have local admin permissions. So let's see how the demos go. And that's better. So this is our attacker machine. And who knows about evil chinks? So let's just start it up. So what this does is that you have a link that looks like a little bit like our login page. But if we zoom a bit, like this, we can see that there's a 0 instead of O. So it looks like. And now we have a victim here. So let's move that here too. And it's interesting, there's some stuff in front of the, but that's okay. Let's start this one. So just paste the link. And now what happens is that we are connecting to that evil things reverse proxy. And what we are, it's proxying like the real login page. Now I'm just going to select the guy here, our victim. Now it's asking for password. Like this. And of course I entered wrong password because I don't want that you're going to log in as me. But anyways, now what happened here is that if you would have entered your real password, the attacker now has your password, but also you will, the attacker would have like your tokens, access tokens and single sign-on tokens. Okay, so that was the first demo. And the second one, I'm going to use best browser in the world. I'm going to open DevTools. I'm just going to go to portal.office.com. And then I go back to DevTools. So then I go here and I'm going to say search. And I'm going to search, well, I don't think the tool now works, but let's, and so the access token is sent in an authorization header, and it's called bearer token. So if I'm able to use your browser when you went to the coffee, you left your laptop open, I can just go and steal the token. So now I copied the token, and I'm just going to show you what's inside the token. So I paste it in here, and now we can see that with this token, I can be Diego. I can access a graph, and what I can do with graph is all this. So calendars read all, contacts read all, so pretty much I can do whatever Diego can do. And no need for any admin permissions at this point. Okay, and then the last one. So now let's run this as an administrator, because now we have local admin permissions, we are threat actors. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to steal a thing called a primary refresh token, which is basically single sign-on. So if you have that, and also like a session key that is bound to that, you can be the user, basically. Or did I have the, yeah, I already have the window, so let's use that one. And for this, I'm going to use my AAD internals toolkit. So basically, what you need to do to get this. So first of all, the laptop or endpoint, whatever you're using, it doesn't have TPM. So if it has TPM, I can do this. And you also need to know user's username and password or PIN. And if you know those, as a local admin, you can get those. So I'm just going to do that. Okay. It didn't work. So probably that's better. Yeah, so now it worked. So with this reference token and then this session key, you can be the user. And it also created a file on the desktop, and I'm going to now use that. I'm on attacker machine again. Oh, I need to do reconnect because the screen is different size. Okay. So I'm just going to paste it here. And then I'm going to create a variable and get content that. Convert from JSON. Okay. Then I'm going to emulate the laptop that has PRT, so I'm going to create a thing called PRT token. I'm going to provide the settings. Like that. Oh, something. Yeah. Equals. Okay. And now I'm going to get AAD in access token. Access token for Teams, let's say. I'm going to provide that token. Then I'm just going to dump that so that we can see what's inside. Okay, so now I exchange that PRT to access token, and this is for Teams, as you can see, spaces.skype.com, and we also like this RSA means that I prove my identity using certificates, so basically whatever I stored from the endpoint. But yeah, those were the demos for tonight, and I will leave the stage to you.
Yeah, thank you, Nestori. Okay, let's circle back to the attack I shared earlier. Again, this is not hypothetical. It's not a lab simulation. It's a real campaign we've seen across multiple large organizations in recent months. And it highlights just how easily a threat actor can weaponize OAuth permissions to compromise an organization without malware, without stealing passwords or tokens, as we've just seen, without ever touching an endpoint. Let's walk it through step by step. So it begins with a phishing email, but it's not your typical credential harvesting phish. This email contains a link inviting the user to approve what appears to be a trusted application, maybe something like Microsoft 365 backup service or secure document viewer. The links lead to a legitimate OAuth consent screen from the identity provider. The branding looks right, the domain is correct, that's because that's really Entra ID. And the user just think, you know what, IT just probably needs me to click on this, and they click accept. And from this moment on, the identity provider issues a token, an access token to the attacker's app. There were no password exchange, and the user kind of unknowingly said, hey, I trust this app to act on my behalf. There'll be only non-human identity interactions at that point, API calls that won't trigger standard signing alerts or anything of that nature. The attacker will then escalate. They register their own malicious app inside the victim's tenant. This step is done in order to establish persistence. And now the app appears in the tenant's catalog, often under a name that mimics legitimate services. They try to blend in, so they'll update the name and the logo, copying the look of trusted apps like Microsoft Teams or OneDrive. This visual camouflage allows the app to avoid scrutiny from both the user as well as IT admins. Now with the token and the granted permissions, the attacker can perform high privileged access actions, such as requesting mailbox settings, .read, write all, or similar scopes. This gives them deep access into the user's mailbox, the ability to read, to write, to manipulate emails, to send emails. At that point, the attacker actually starts searching for sensitive content. They're scanning for keywords like FY25 planning, financial forecasts, or confidential. They're collecting business-critical data without triggering a single DLP policy, purview, thank you, or any other logging alert. In order to exfiltrate the data quietly, they create an inbox forwarding rule that those email to an external address that is under their control. We've even seen cases where the attackers have forwarded specific conversations from HR or legal. And then finally, the attacker even deletes the forwarded messages from the user-sent items. This is to prevent the victim from actually noticing anything unusual and gives the attacker more time to operate undetected. So let's take a step back now, okay? Again, this entire kill chain from phishing to persistence to data exfiltration happened without malware, without user credentials, completely in the cloud. There were no signing alerts from foreign IPs, no endpoints alerts, nothing that would trigger a traditional red flag. This is the new reality, okay? Today, attackers, they don't need elite skills or 0 days. They just need a user to click accept. Okay, the attack we just walked through is scary on an individual level, but what's also concerning is how attackers are scaling up across many victims. This is what I refer to as SaaS harvesters. Essentially, attackers treat cloud tokens and apps like an entire ecosystem to exploit. They're moving from tenant to tenant. Consider this campaign reported by Mystique. The attacker registered around 17,000 malicious OAuth apps across different organizations. Yes, that's 5 digits, and it's not just 17,000 users in a single organization. Those were apps that were scattered across many organizations. And using those apps, they managed to send almost 1 million phishing emails externally, okay? They use those apps and they leverage the trust in those organizations' email domains. Now think about your company domain. That could be unknowingly involved in sending phishing emails to others just because there's an attacker OAuth apps abusing it. This is kind of a new age of cloud-born botnets in a sense. Another group, Storm1286, showed how OAuth apps can be used in business email compromise or spam campaigns while evading detection. They did an initial compromise via classic measures like password spraying, targeting users without MFA. But then, instead of doing something noisy immediately, they registered an OAuth app using those accounts and simply waited. In some cases, they even waited for months. The reason they did that is to lower the chances of anyone connecting the dots. And when they were ready, they used those authorized apps in order to log into mailboxes and again send out huge volumes of spam. Because these were coming from genuine accounts and tenants, they weren't flagged by traditional spam filters. So we're essentially dealing with a new category of threat actors. I call them, again, SaaS harvesters. They harvest identities, tokens, resources across SaaS platforms in bulk. Okay, it's a step beyond the one-off consent phishing that we've just seen. Another creative turn with OAuth is cryptojacking in the cloud. In the case of Storm 1283, the attacker took over an account that had owner role in an Azure subscription. They registered an app and gave it permissions in Azure, and then used that app in order to deploy a bunch of VMs for crypto mining. Imagine an attacker effectively signing into your Azure subscription as a trusted app, and spinning up 50 virtual machines to mine cryptocurrency, all paid by you, of course. Some organizations have only discovered this when their cloud bill arrived with an extra $1 million in it. This is a very different motive. It's financial via resource theft rather than data theft, but it's OAuth abuse nonetheless. And what do these have in common? They both leverage the inherent trust and lack of oversight of OAuth app access. Many organizations aren't monitoring how many apps are being created or what are they doing. Attackers also know that time is on their side. If they keep things in a kind of low usage under the radar, they can persist for longer. By the time someone actually notices an unusual activity, they may have already accomplished their goal, whether it's sending 1 million phishing emails or racking up a huge cloud bill compute. Okay, moving on to detection and prevention, starting with prevention. How do we make it as hard as possible for attackers to actually pull those kind of OAuth attacks that we've discovered today? I'll divide it into 3 big pillars. We start with control access. First, you need to govern consents. Okay, a quick win is to limit OAuth app consent in your organization. By default, many platforms allow any user to consent to any app. That's a welcome mat for attackers. Instead, funnel consent through IT or admins. Most enterprise platforms like Microsoft Entra ID will let you disable user consent completely or restrict it to low-impact permissions only. That way, Bob in marketing can't accidentally approve evil app to read all the company files. And of course, user education is vital. Employees need to understand that an OAuth consent is as powerful as giving their password away. Second, enforce least privilege for applications. Audit existing apps, right-size their permissions and remove them if they're not needed. Restrict who can create or register apps and who can grant sensitive permissions where possible. Prefer to use delegated permissions instead of app-only. That will also reduce the blast radius if an attacker does compromise an app. And finally, apply conditional access and device trust. Block unverified publishers, control token issuance based on device or network, and use features like continuous access evaluation to spot anomalies such as impossible travel or token replay.
And I have a comment for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the conditional access, so if you require that users need to log in from managed and compliant devices, that prevent that man in the middle, adversary in the middle attack I showed you, because that box is not very compliant.
Okay, thank you, Nestori. Next, we have secure credentials. As Nestori mentioned, every app has credentials, either a secret or a certificate. Those need the same treatment as any production password, okay? Store them securely in Key Vault or a similar product, rotate them regularly, monitor for changes. If a new secret suddenly appears on an app, that could signal hijacking. And then a zero trust mindset is also key in those scenarios. Assume that any token can be stolen. Use shorter token lifetime to limit attacker window and enforce step-up authentication for high-risk operations. And then lastly, evaluate and maintain. The third pillar is about keeping your environment clean over time. First, evaluate third-party apps before connecting them. Look at the publisher verification, privacy policy, or even SOC 2 reports if they'll handle sensitive data. Maintain a catalog of approved apps and recertify them regularly. Most importantly, practice consent cleanup and hygiene. Attackers love forgotten apps and stale consent. Build a process to regularly sweep for unused or overprivileged app and remove them. Think of this as security hygiene. If you let it pile up, the risk just grows silently. Ongoing cleanups just reduces the attack surface. So for the big picture, if we control access, secure our credentials, and continuously maintain hygiene, we remove most or much of the low-hanging fruit that attackers exploit. But we must also assume some attackers will slip through, which is why detection is also very critical.
Yeah, okay. So actually, I'll go back a little bit. So I think we should have enough time. So those attacks I showed you, so when I was a user, I was able to steal access tokens. And access tokens give you access to a certain resource with certain client for 1 hour, typically. And the refresh token gives you 90 days access, so you can request new ones, but only for that same resource and client. Now, when I had like a local admin permissions, after disabling our virus software, I was able to steal the PRT and session key. And those give you access to all resources and all clients you have access to. So they're the zero trust. So bring your own devices, don't do that. Because you don't know how secure your user's endpoint is. If it's managed by you, then you know. And of course, remove the admin permissions, so don't have those at all. So that also like keeps the blast radius a little bit smaller. Okay, but now to the detection. So if you want to detect something, what do you need to have? Logs, of course. So that's the first thing. So enable all the logs you have. Well, if we talk about Entra, we have a Microsoft Graph API activity log. That could be a little bit noisy, but at least for some time. So you don't need to keep that for like 1 year or something, but at least some time so that you can do any hunting you have. Then, of course, when you have the logs, then you can start to find anomalies. So if token usage is changed, maybe you have a lot of like downloads suddenly, what shouldn't happen normally, that's the thing to do. And then, of course, monitor applications. So if there's any change for ownership, if there's added like new credentials, like Daniel mentioned that they created an application and waited for 30 days, probably because there's nothing in audit logs about that anymore. Yeah. So then they can do something more. So yeah, monitor that. And rapid response, so try to do something immediately if you can. And do the minimum things so that don't delete the application. You can just like delete the credentials or remove permissions. Don't delete that because that might do something else. And for user accounts, you can just disable them. And for endpoints, well, it depends what kind of like systems you have. You can isolate that, for instance. So just don't delete all the data, just isolate that so you can study it like better. And of course, if you have possibility, do the automation. So whenever there is something anomaly, write alert if you have systems to do that, and then also to act if it's like you're quite confident that what has happened, so that you can like disable the user, for instance, automatically. If you see that, okay, our token is now used, well, this is a company from Finland, and now tokens are used from China. Okay.
So as we wrap up, let's reinforce a few key points from today. First, OAuth-based attacks are not theoretical. They're happening to organizations of all sizes. We've seen it from small organizations getting hit with malicious apps, sending spam to major government breaches via token forgery. This technique will keep evolving, okay, because frankly, they work and often they fly under the radar. So we as defenders, we have to integrate our knowledge into our everyday security thinking. And then second, we have to start thinking about application and tokens as identities. We spent years doing identity and access management for users, but now those users have dozens of app connections acting on their behalf. An app with a token can sometimes do more damage than a user with a password. So when we design security controls, ask, okay, what about the apps? Are we watching them? Are we limiting them? We saw that a single click can equate to a full compromise. That's both terrifying, but also a call to action. It means that one weak link, one user, or one unchecked app can undermine strong security measures that we have elsewhere. And then defense in depth absolutely applies here. if I had to boil down our defense strategy, then prevent as much as possible, but assume some will get through and set up traps to catch it quickly. Okay. Looking forward, we should acknowledge that attackers are creative. OAuth abuse was a niche topic a few years ago. Now it is mainstream. The threat will continue to morph, maybe abusing new flows of OAuth or going after other cloud platforms similarly. Keeping up with those with threat intelligence like the Microsoft security blog or other industry reports is really important. We also mentioned a phrase called SaaS harvester. I expect that we'll continue to hear more about that in security conferences and papers. And it's basically attackers scaling up. We need to scale up our defense accordingly, possibly with automations and AI on our side as well. And let's take a minute to reflect on the questions on screen. Do you know the answer to those questions? If you don't, here is my suggestion to you. Go audit your environment. Okay? Make a list of all third-party apps connected to your enterprise. You might be surprised with the number. Find out who approved them, what permissions do they have, and whether they're still needed. This exercise often uncovers a few risky things to clean up. Then put in place at least one preventive control that we've discussed today. Maybe you enforce that from tomorrow, no new app can be consented without a security review. It's bold, but it might save you that one careless click later on. On the detection side of things, if you have a SOC, ask them, hey, do we get alerts if an OSAP starts doing something weird? If the answer is no or we don't know, then that's also an area to invest in. Even simple alerts, like any app with high privileges would trigger an email to IT. That can make a difference. You can also consider turning on app governance feature within Defender for Cloud Apps that will take care of most of that on its own. So with that, we want to thank you for your time and attention. It's been a deep session, and we hope you learned and it was valuable for you. Thank you, and thank you for having us.
No, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for your time and for the interactive demos, for the deep insights. It was very informative and very interesting. Thank you so much. As you know, we are a little bit over the time, so there won't be a Q&A right now. But if you are part of the networking dinner, the two of you will join us?
Yes.
That's the plan, yes. That's the plan.
That's the plan, perfect. So that's when you can get your questions in. We will go on like so. You all remain seated for a minute because I have to do some housekeeping with you. And the two of you will receive a warm applause and can leave the stage.
Okay, thank you very much.